we think that like we've talked a lot about identity. It's like we think that our identity is embedded into the metaverse or like the internet, when actually it's fairly like a simulation of identity. It's like my email is not my identity. It's just this like simulated like record in a database. Um,
Hi everyone, welcome to yet another exciting episode of NEWFORUM. NEWFORUM is a community podcast inviting purpose-driven creators, visionaries, developers, and investors to spark accessible conversations on the topics of crypto, the metaverse, NFT, and everything Web3. And on today's episode, I am super honored to have Chris Castig, the co-founder of Console.xyz, a secure chat for Web3. He's also an adjunct professor at Columbia University Business School. Previously, Chris co-founded OneMonth, a 20-person edTech startup, and Combinator company. Launched 3 multi-million-dollar courses while at General Assembly, and developed digital products for both seed-stage startups and top brands. Chris is passionate about using technology to solve some of the biggest problems in the world. And we can't wait to chat with Chris about why a secure chat for Web3 is even more essential in this digital era, the solutions and impact Console promises to offer. Thank you for joining me again, Chris.
Thanks for being here with me, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Amazing. So maybe we can start off with you telling us a bit about you. I did say a bit about your background, but maybe you could get into a bit of some details and then tell us how you transitioned into Web3.
Yeah, sure. I was a developer for a long time. I got really inspired by peer-to-peer music file sharing. I don't know if you know what that is or if you have any experience, but like, a little over 10 years ago, it was a really big thing to be able to share files, music files directly with people. And so from there, I was just so inspired with how that was transforming the music industry. And so when I saw Bitcoin, it just kind of clicked in my head that essentially this is doing the same thing for money. And then when I saw Web3, I say over the past few years start to grow, it was like, wow, we could use this, amazing technology to help build a better internet, to help build a better society. And yeah, I was just super excited to leave my, I guess you could say, Web2 company to transition to building Console in Web3. So happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you here. And I'd love to hear more about Console. I mean, the concept is brilliant. And I'd love to hear about the vision, mission, and where you're at with that, if it's okay to share.
Yeah, no, ask me anything.
Okay.
Console is Web3 chat. And, maybe somebody's wondering, well, what exactly do you mean by Web3 chat? I think the things which help us stand apart from Discord or Telegram are that with Console, the only way to log in is using your decentralized identity. So essentially, something like MetaMask or some kind of web wallet in order to access and log on to the site, right? And I think that's really, really powerful to have these decentralized identities, which could be like an NFT, or it could be .eth name or .btc or something like that. And it's really powerful because it gives communities a chance to really trust each other in a way that isn't possible with Web2. And I think we've seen a lot of that with, if you look to Discord, there's a lot of scams and spam and a lot of hacks and all this stuff. And, our main argument or philosophy, and why we're building a Web3 is because we believe that users should own their own identity. And that is like the fundamental building block of Console chat. So yeah, we're building Web3 chat. And to us, that is just like starting with only your wallet login, and you own your own keys to your name. All of that's super important. And actually just, as far as I know, like hasn't been done, or at least hasn't been done on a mass scale to really compete with the incumbents. So we're excited to be in this space right now.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. And I'm wondering, like, which stage are you at now? I mean, if you could share a bit about that. And are you like generally targeting everyone in Web3, or is there like a specific target audience that you have in mind as you're building?
Yeah. Yeah, Console is live right now in a closed beta. So we have one community using the platform that we're working with. A few thousand people are in that community. And yeah, that's giving us a chance to really just, continue to evolve and make sure that we're getting everything right. From there, we have quite a wait list. And we're really excited about that. We're really excited that people are excited. And we're looking to onboard those communities one by one. But yeah, specifically to answer your question, the types of communities that we think are really going to benefit from Console or that we're really excited about, or especially what I would say are communities that want to focus and take some kind of action. I guess, what does that mean? It's pretty broad, but in some ways you can think about, I think the experience with Console's a little bit more like if you've ever used Slack. It's like generally when I'm in a Slack community, it's a bunch of people who are a bit more like a tribe that are aligned with some kind of mission, right? And that mission might be, in Web3, it might be that you are looking to purchase real estate, right? Like Cabin DAO is doing, and you're going to have shared access to like a decentralized city. That mission might be that you're looking to collectively invest in something and share that, something like the Orange DAO, which is doing something like that. There's a lot of examples out there, but I think especially when you want to focus and coordinate with people, I think that's like really like the sweet spot of Console. But with that said, I think, more broadly, any community, if NFTs, is just like having art or surrounding around creators, or even just people who are unified by a deep sense of care for better security and privacy. Everyone I think will benefit there. So I think there's a lot of different use cases that we're seeing, and we're excited to roll that out.
Awesome. I'm also I want to know what you think about the importance to not just have a chain transactions, but also to own your keys and data. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And I bet like you're applying some of these I guess concepts, or should I as you're building Console.
Well, there was a time in like the early internet, we could say, and I don't know if you remember this, but Google had this motto within Google, and the motto was "Don't be evil." I don't know if you remember that. And it was an internal motto. It wasn't written on the website,
right.
But it was like, it kind of like surfaced a lot in articles. You hear people talking about it, and what Google meant when they said that, I want to believe that, of course, I think that they had the best intentions in mind, but the idea was, people are fallible, and they recognized how much power they had over, even if you look at Gmail. It was actually the Gmail founder who had come up with that slogan. And, we can now read people's emails. Like literally early Google was making a bot that would read through your emails and send you ads based on the things you were typing in private. So there's anything from that to, when Google decided to leave China for censorship issues and all this kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of like values and ideology that gets baked into the technology that we use. And the question, comes up in Web3 of, well, who do we trust with our most sensitive data, whether it's our name, our money, all this stuff. And, I'd say the Web3 revolution really is about reclaiming that data, reclaiming your identity, reclaiming your data as you go around the web, all of that kind of stuff. And, if Google said, don't be evil, right? You trust people. I would say what we're trying to build is a can't be evil platform, right? Like what can't be evil means to us is it's like, we don't have your identity. Like it's not, you own your identity when you come to Console. And so we can't, if someone comes and tries to hack into the platform and like become you, it's like, we just don't have your keys to like take your identity, right? And that's something we're really aiming to build and like, really share with the world is that possibility. Somebody that does that really well right now, I say would be Signal. Like Signal has developed this really safe, not just secure, but like actually fundamentally safe platform where they don't have any of your data. And I'd say they're really pioneers in that. And so we're trying to bring that to chat communities, I would say. And so to kind of like circle back and answer your question, now that we kind of have all that out there, the importance of the seed phrase or the importance of the private keys, that's specifically what it means to own your identity. It's if you own your keys, you own your identity. People say not your keys, not your coins. I think the same is true for identity, not your keys, not your identity.
I'm also thinking, when you talk about console, I can't help but think if there's this possibility of it maybe becoming maybe a DAO or some aspect of it, because you compared it to Slack, and then I think you mentioned something about a bit about the community and sort of maybe values aligned or something like that I heard. And so I got a bit curious.
Yeah, I love that question. So yeah, if the question is, will Console become a DAO or is Console a DAO? I'd say, right now, no. We are a group of about like 10 plus people who are actively working on building this and excited about it. But longer term, that would be our ambition, is to share some of that ownership, whether it's in helping decide the future of Console or whether it's potentially sharing some upside of, the ownership. We're not really sure yet. I have a belief that the past year of DAO, there's been a big burst of DAOs. There's been a lot of DAOs over the past year. We can say like maybe 2021 was the year of the DAO. But I think that the really strict kind of definition of what a DAO was over the past year, my hunch is that that's not going to serve everybody in the future, because it's very difficult to have a leaderless organization where everything is decentralized. And there's, I think some people will pull it off. I think especially for projects that are quite ambitious from like, I would say a legal standpoint, like a Uniswap or maybe even an ENS, they have the same incentives to really strongly decentralize from a legal perspective, the same way Bitcoin did. If somebody knew who Satoshi was, they would have killed them. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what Satoshi knew what was possible. So I think that really strict use case of a DAO isn't going to be the case in a few years. I think there'll be a much broader way that people are thinking about decentralized organizing. And so I think that's probably where we'll fit into it is, there'll be leadership along the way, but how do we share that, decision making, and how do we share that upside? Those are the questions that we're looking to explore, but it'll be a few years from now until we get there.
We're going to figure it out with time, as we make those, how do you say it, as it evolves, and we are going to kind of impact it with our experiences and everything. I'm also curious to know, when we talk about the metaverse, everybody has their own kind of, not everybody, but most people would define the metaverse as this space that is yet to come. Others would say it's already here. Others would say just what you and I are doing right now, this communication over Zoom in itself, we're in the metaverse, right? So I'm not sure where Console fits in that context. Are you going to have this console space metaverse, or is it just going to be like a normal, chat platform or app?
Yeah. So yeah, the idea of the metaverse, I guess personally to me, it doesn't mean that much. I don't know. I'm not particularly religious, although I did grow up in a religious household. And, I think there's this reading of the Bible that people interpret, and some people say, hey, all of those things happened. Every single thing happens. People lived for 700 years and like I don't know, whatever, flew on elephants. I don't know, whatever's, whatever's, that's not in there. But for example, and then there's other people who are like, well, those things didn't happen, but it's like more about the lessons learned and like the principles, and like they kind of use those as like stories. The idea of the metaverse started in a fiction, in Snow Crash, in a Neil Stephenson's book, and it was this kind of fictionalized version of I think what could become in a super digital society. And so to me, it's like I just don't take the literal all of the things of being like everyone's going to be a pseudo anonymous avatar, and like I think it's about the principles, and so I like where you led the question with is this Zoom, is this the metaverse? Like if there is a metaverse, to me it is already here, and this is what it is. It's like the digital representation of real life. And with that, I do think we're in the early days, because we think that like we've talked a lot about identity. It's like we think that our identity is embedded into the metaverse or like the internet, when actually it's fairly like a simulation of identity. It's like my email is not my identity. It's just this like simulated like record in a database. So when I think about the metaverse and like what it stands for, I'd say we're like already there, but we're like in the early days. And I think what we're going to see is more and more our rights, like as humans, like there's going to be questions of human rights, whether it's censorship or, certain countries like China where you can't collaborate online. You can't, like solidarity is basically a crime in a lot of ways, of joining people together and speaking out in groups. And so I think when we talk about the metaverse, it's going to be the space in between our computers that we exist in, that we are upgrading humanity and human rights. But I don't know that that's going to look like just avatars and flying, pizza delivery people. I don't know. That's just my own interpretation.
Yeah, I guess time would tell. But so far, people are really big on this extension of their identity and having their avatars living this perhaps life that they can't really live in the real life or express, if they can't really express themselves better in a way. And so I personally see, I'm always like torn, because in a way I see this as a form of the metaverse, because a couple of years ago some of these things were impossible, right? And so ultimately I see the metaverse as a way of like enhancing human experience, and if we can focus on it and make it that way, I think that it will serve us a greater purpose as a humanity or as a human race.
I love that, and that that part of it to me is so important, and I'm happy we have it, and I'm happy, and I don't think it will go away. And to be fair, it's like that idea of I think what you're tapping into is online, there's this opportunity for people, for all of us potentially, to be a voice or an idea or a representation free from age or race or gender. Like we can exist, I don't know, almost like, I guess you could say like meritocratic, like based on who we are, right? Based on our values, based on like the amount we contribute, not on like who our parents are. I think that's kind of what you're tapping it, like what I'm feeling from what you're saying. And in a lot of ways, like that was the early idea of the internet. Like back in the 80s, people called it cyberspace, right? So yeah, I think all of those things are really important. I think the only thing I was trying to distinguish is like, I don't know that NFTs and avatars are the only way to do that. Like, and it's not, and I don't think that like virtual reality is the only way to do that. I think that like, coming back to console, we will support pseudonymous identity. Like and that's like a lot of what I was trying to explain with like, because you don't have to KYC, give your passport or something to use it, because you don't have to share your email address. You can be whoever you want, and you can start a community that's completely anonymous or completely pseudonymous. And that part of the metaverse, if we want to call it that, is like very valuable, because like, again, that just comes back to identity. And I think, and that's what we're building. So Yeah, I love the way you described that. I just wanted to tie together some
Exactly.
knots. Yeah.
Exactly. Thanks for that, for sharing those thoughts. And so you also created a gallery piece called Path to Decentralization. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so Path to Decentralization is currently in Soho in New York City, at 190 Bowery. It's a really beautiful space called the Empire DAO. I don't know if you've heard of it. The Empire DAO is a 5-story co-working space in this. It's the building is legendary. It's this. I'll just go into it for 1 second. This guy Jay Maisel like lived there as an artist for 40 years. There's actually a Netflix documentary about him. It's this phenomenal like beacon of New York City, and somehow the Web3 community, through a lot of hard work, some people working on that, have been able to lease this building and turn it into a really beautiful co-working space called Empire DAO. And there's a very multi-chain ethic as well amongst, there's like a Solana room, there's the Ethereum room, there's a Stacks room, there's a lot of different projects in there. So I was lucky enough to speak with one of the founders of the Empire DAO. And, I think we were just like curious how we could, really unite all of these multi-chain or just new people, like what unites us all. And I think there was this opportunity that we saw to just tell the story of Web3. And for me, and like you had mentioned, I teach at Columbia University, and so I do have this core. I have a lot of material that I've been teaching on. Web3, if we think about it as decentralization is the word that gets used a lot. That concept of decentralization goes back decades. It goes back to the 1960s. The government and like scientists and people were writing about it, and there's been just this like really, I think like epic kind of journey, I think, to really try to make decentralized systems that are owned by the people and not by, centralized governments, centralized companies like Facebook, Instagram, whatever, WhatsApp. Basically, those are all the same company anyway, right? So that's been the vision. And that's why it's called Path to Decentralization. And it starts at the beginning of, around the Cold War, which is where the idea of decentralization came from. And as you walk up the stairs, we have, I believe it's 12 different, places in time, kind of milestones on that path to decentralization. And then when you get to the top, you're at Web3 and you kind of enter into the Empire DAO.
Wow, sounds fascinating. Is there a way to kind of experience it virtually?
I don't know if it's been made virtual. I guess stay tuned. So I am writing a book. It's based on a book that I'm writing. So I guess if anyone's interested, I would love to hear from you. I might just share my Twitter now and say, follow me at Castig, Castig. There will be a book I'm working on coming out, and there's maybe talk of a potential documentary or something to go along with that. So I think follow me, and maybe there'll be more things I'll be dripping out over the next few months.
Exciting. Really, thank you so much, Chris. This has been an incredible conversation. Really enjoyed it. And I think if I was going to go back to school, I'd love to be your student. Thanks for, taking your time to explain everything. And I want to know if you have any last thoughts for our community, for your community as well, who will be watching this before we wrap up.
No, I think, if anyone is excited about Console, you can come to Console.xyz. Right now we have a wait list, and you can apply. If you have a community, you can apply. So I'd say, go there, follow us on Twitter. That's where all our updates come from. And and we're also at the moment hiring a CTO. We have a dev team of 6 people that we're looking to help manage. So if you're someone out there who has built an app that millions of people have used, that's specifically what we're scaling up to. We might need your help. So feel free to get in touch. And that's a very specific ask, but you have a great audience. So maybe someone out there is listening that wants to reach out.
Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Thank you all so much for being a part of today's forum. If you want to get more involved in our community, make sure to follow us on our social platforms. Twitter is NEWFORUM_NCO, and we're NEWFORUM.io or NewLife.io. You can also join our Discord community to connect with our guests. You'll find all the links in the description below, as well as Chris's links and Console's links. If you want to learn more about the New Foundation ecosystem, go to newcoin.org. And as always, take a moment, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And I will see you in the next episode.